Hey guys, what's up? So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Cherish project, the whole Safe Sanitary Napkins project, and why I'm so involved in that. Sorry for my appearance. I took a shower and washed my hair, and it drained me of like all my energy. So I'm kind of just kicking it till I bounce back in a little while. But getting into it, I'm personally attached to this project more so than a lot of the other projects that I have going on, simply because it resonates with me and my health issues. I can't say this is the same thing for everyone because obviously everybody is different. But I know that there's a lot of females out there that are suffering in silence, not wanting to talk about things that are going on with them because it's embarrassing, and you think maybe it's just me, but it's not. So I started my period when I was 9, about to be 10, and from day one it has been like a process from hell. Every time it was that time of the month, I was dreading it because I knew I was going to be in pain. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do anything, and then I was like, obviously at 9 years old, I'm like, I'm bleeding out of my coochie. What's going on, I knew what was going on. Obviously school had a little basic health education thing, but still I was like, I don't know. I just felt it sucked not being able to go to school and interact with people while I was bleeding for a week because I was in pain. I missed a whole lot of school, and people didn't understand that. Even in high school, people they didn't understand that. Like, oh, it's just cramps, and so that was annoying. But something that started happening with me, that made me go on a discovery rant, made me start digging, researching, was I think I was 13. Guys, at this point I was not interested in boys. I'm still very tomboyish, but when I was a kid, like, I was tomboy, and I started getting ulcers, like really, really bad ulcers, in my lady parts. And it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. And, and when you go to use the restroom, when you gotta pee at some point, but, it would burn like bloody hell because it was running over your raw ulcers, and it was excruciatingly painful. So, my mom had taken me to the doctor to try to figure out, of course at that time, every female's parent is like, oh, they done fooled around, now they caught something. So I had gotten an STD panel, everything came back negative, and they were just like, well, maybe you're just allergic to the detergent. I was really athletic, so they thought maybe it was because, I was sweating a lot, and they were like, well, wear, cotton underwear, and, wear looser fitting jeans or looser fitting pants. Just like a hodgepodge of, suggestions on things. And, but they never stopped. And I continued to have this problem up until really just recently, 2 months ago. And so when the doctors had no, resolution for me, I changed underwear types. I wore, moisture wicking underwear. And nothing had changed. I changed detergents. Nothing had changed. I changed soaps. Nothing had changed. It was just, I was just frustrated. And so I started writing down when they would pop up, and what I ate that day, what I was wearing that day, just because I was so over it, and the doctors weren't helping me. And then at 16, I had gotten diagnosed with endometriosis. And So I was like, oh, is this from endometriosis? And then they were like, no, that's not related to it. So I was like, okay, so that hope of that being a cause, was gone. So back to the research and journaling I went, and I started noticing a pattern. And the pattern was whenever I would wear or feel my period coming on, I would put on a pad the night before. I have a tilted uterus, so it's always been very, very, very painful for me to have any tampons, and so I don't use tampons, and so I've always used pads, and so you can feel the night before you start your period, like you start getting that that dull cramp, and like, oh, I'm about to start the next morning, so you put that pad on in case you start like during the night. So it would be the night that I would put my pads on. I'd wake up either in the middle of the night or that morning to get ready for school, and I could feel the ulcer starting. And so I was noticing that this was recurring, and this was going on with, my period. So it was going on, it was on the cycle of my periods. So I was like, well, I was like, maybe it's just something going on. I'm like, okay, maybe it's because I'm not changing my pad frequently enough. So then I tried changing it like every hour, like clockwork. Still was happening. And then I was like, okay, so let me just, switch brands of pads. Was still happening. Then one day I just balled up a whole bunch of tissue and, put it in my underwear. And that was the only time that I had my period that I did not get an ulcer. So it led me to figure out, oh, okay, so it must be that, something I'm allergic to, the feminine products, the pads, the panty liners, because I was wearing panty liners as well, on a daily basis. And so when I stopped, using those, and I would just put like tissue in my panties or just not have anything on at all, everything was fine. So I started doing research, like hardcore research, try to figure out like what is going on. Y'all, these pads, I'm gonna say, the big name pads that are in all the stores go through the same cleaning process as well as their tampons. Really, honestly, you shouldn't use tampons, period, because menstruation is shedding the old lining of the uterus, and your uterus lining can't shed when you have a tampon up there. And it, things get clogged up. They're not allowed, they're not able to release well. You get bacterial infections. You shouldn't use tampons, period. It's just not good. But anyways, so I got home and I opened up one of these pads because the research had told me what the pads are essentially made of is recycled, chemically cleaned and treated garbage. Plastic bags, reused plastic bottles, and like a whole bunch of particle dust, that's left over to form the cotton that's at the very bottom, of the pad. I went home and dissected pads. The pads I had been using since I was 9, the companies that I was using since I've been 9 years old, since I had a period. And sure enough, I pulled the top layer off and it's plastic. And I'm like, why would you put this is what goes on contact with your body? This is what's down there, in your lady parts. Plastic? Would you put a plastic bag on your, on your lady parts? No. So they put it through an 18-step chlorine, chemical cleansing process, and then that is what is produced as your pad. That's what's used as your tampon. And if you're using tampons, this is what you're putting dioxin, you're putting chlorine, you're putting dye, you're putting recycled garbage, you're putting just all these toxic things inside of your body and leaving it there for however long you keep your tampon in. Um, and if I had known what I know now, I probably wouldn't have ended up with endometriosis. I probably wouldn't have ended up, with the terrible cramps. I probably wouldn't have ended up with I know I wouldn't have ended up with the ulcers or, any of the issues I was having. And this is the point of me wanting to do this project. This is the point of me telling you this story, is because I don't want any other young females, any female that is menstruating, to go through this. You shouldn't have plastic, inside you. You just shouldn't. It's not good. And so Cherish pads are chemical free. It's got a negative ion strip in the middle of it, so it will pull away bacteria and it will balance your pH so that you don't have like odors and bacterial infections brewing, and it moisture wicks. So as soon as the blood hits you, and that was another thing that was causing me to have breakouts, was like I was just sitting in my blood because it's been a plastic bag that's just been sitting there. It's a mess, guys. And I want for people to be able to know that they are doing everything that they can, for their young daughters, so that they don't have to go through this. They don't get toxic shock syndrome. They don't get endometriosis. They don't get cervical cancer. They don't get uterine cancer. It's worth checking out Cherish products. They're only $5, same as you're going to pay for, the competitor pads or tampons, or whatever else is out there. But it could save, it could be the difference between your daughter or your family member or loved one having to continue to suffer or hear that they've gotten diagnosed with some kind of feminine cancer or problem. Just give it a look, give it a try. But now why it's so huge to me to try and get this information out to other people. I'll drop a link and everything below, and you guys can check it out for yourselves. But what do you got to lose?